Hi, in this video I will be describing and deconstructing both the philosophy behind and the execution of cryogenics. This will get into what I personally consider to be consciousness, which can be weird for some of you, if you disagree. Anyways, that being said, let's get started. The theory behind cryogenics initially does make sense, because we do have animal studies with hamsters being brought back to life after being frozen, with about a 95% survival rate, which is great compared to just aging, which has a survival rate of 0%. So in theory, it's a pretty cool idea, and it does seem to work on small animals. These experiments were fine, but they stopped working once they tried to scale it up to bigger animals. With the type of cryogenics used on people though, you aren't frozen alive. Every single cryogenics company relies on you dying before you can be frozen, because freezing a living person is considered murder. So they'll first wait for you to die, and then they'll grab your body as quickly as they can and replace all your blood with a liquid that can't freeze or form crystals that could damage your cells, and then move you into a freezer. And they also, of course, reinvest the money you gave them. Some people argue that the reason why cryogenics is flawed is because there's no guarantee that there will be technology to bring you back to life in the future, or any guarantees that the company you work with will hold up their end of the deal. But the idea or the logic behind it isn't really my problem with cryogenics. No, I have a philosophical problem with the idea that you can even come back to life even if everything goes according to plan. It is very obvious that it's our brain that controls our bodies and our personality, since head trauma can cause personality problems, and disconnecting the brain from the rest of the body leads to paralysis. And of course, my favorite fact, when people say that someone has died and come back to life in a hospital, and they claim to have seen visions of the afterlife and ghosts from the past, the quote-unquote death they're actually experiencing is called clinical death and not brain death or legal death. Clinical death just means your heart has stopped beating and sending oxygen to the rest of your organs, including your brain, which could lead to hallucinations. Remember, even though a lot of people like using these instances of death as evidence for or a justification of an afterlife, there still hasn't been a single example of a person coming back from total brain death. Once the brain shuts off, there is no way to turn it back on. And even if there was a way to turn the brain back on, I don't believe that would mean you've come back to life. Someone has, just not you. Because although I do believe that the brain is what generates consciousness, I don't believe that the brain is you. You are not the fatty neurons that are sending the signals and processing information and memory. You are the information and memory being processed. And the moment this process stops, you stop. The same way that a video on a computer is not the individual transistors, but the thing being processed between the transistors. And if the computer was ever completely shut off, and the information being processed between the transistors stopped, the video would no longer exist, even if you turn the computer back on again. You might be thinking, well, what if I just made a copy of the video and put it in another computer with the exact same save file? Let's go with that idea. Imagine if a magical creature had made a perfect copy of you down to every atom and quark. Would you be okay with me shooting you in the head? No? Okay, what if I put the copy's consciousness inside your mind after you die? Still no? Why not? This is basically the same problem with teleportation devices that require the complete destruction of you and your body, and the reconstruction of that person somewhere else. Again, this person wouldn't be you. And some people also use this to argue that you also die when you go to sleep, and that the person that wakes up the next day is a completely new person. But I disagree with this theory, because the processing that your brain does doesn't simply shut off when you're asleep. If anything, it actually increases when you're sleeping. And since the processing of information and memory is still happening, and there's no point where the neurons just simply shut off, then I can't imagine how your consciousness would simply disappear. So from my perspective, because cryogenics requires you to die and end your stream of consciousness, all that is being preserved is your hardware and body, like an extremely impressive and modern version of a mummy. Well-preserved corpses that are waiting for a new host to occupy them. But if you disagree with my theory, let me know in the comments. Anyways, that's it. Bye.